Hey guys, welcome to another video here on the AviationPro channel. In this video we're going to take a look at how to keep the flight sim hobby affordable. Now, flight simulation is a hobby that can get quite expensive pretty quickly. You know, people just usually don't just buy a flight sim and fly it around. They usually expand it with software and hardware to create a more realistic flight experience. The problem with that is, of course, the costs really rise pretty rapidly. Especially if you're really buying a lot of add-ons or have an extensive set of hardware, and if you combine it with sort of addiction to flight simulation, it can get pretty bad. So in this video I'd like to give you some tips on how to keep the flight sim hobby affordable and how to cut down costs. Because sometimes I feel this is not really a topic covered that much, for example here on YouTube, so I think this will hopefully help you out. The first 5 tips are going to be related more to software, and then the last 5 tips are more going to be related to hardware. Now, the first tip is to wait for sales. Now, this might seem very obvious, but I'm not sure if everyone is really aware and makes use of these sales. Whenever a new add-on comes out, you don't have to immediately buy it. Best thing to do if you want to keep this hobby affordable is actually wait until a sale comes around. And trust me, there are quite a few sales that are around. The time where you can expect the most sales are during the holidays, any type of holiday like Independence Day or Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, of course. These are all periods in the time of the year that usually developers but also resellers like SimMarket have sales going on. And sales might be per developer, or as I said, per reseller. Like Airsoft might have a general sale, cutting the costs of a particular product line, or SimMarket might give 25% off during Christmas, for example, on all sceneries, whatever. So keep an eye out for sales, guys. So what you can do to make use of those sales is to really look for your vendor or reseller that you usually buy your products and see when they have sales going on, typically throughout the year, and then you can wait for those sale periods before you buy any add-on. And another thing that you can do is, for example, subscribe to newsletters, so you always get the latest news from a particular vendor, and then make use of the sales as soon as you see in your email box through the newsletter that there's a sale going on. The second tip that I'd like to give you is to browse for different online shops. Now, this might seem obvious as well, but again, I think this is something not everyone is really aware of in the flight sim community, that even add-on software add-on like airports or airplanes actually might differ in price per online shop. So really try to explore like the different resellers, SimMarket, for example, or FS Pilot Shop or Aerosoft. Either they have a sale going on that you can make use of, or they just have a lower price. And it does happen. So make sure you look out, and if you're considering to buy a product, check out the different resellers and make sure you get the best deal out of it. The third tip that I'd like to give you is to avoid impulse purchases. Always ask yourself the question, do you really need the add-on that you're going to buy? Now, of course, a lot of new add-ons are being released, new aircraft, new airports that are all very entertaining and all look very good, to be honest. But there's always something that you have to keep in the back of your minds, like, am I gonna really use this right now or in the future? For example, GSX Level 2 has just been released, and I tried the trial and looked at the product, and it all looked very nice. It's really cool to see all those animated people walking down the stairs. But then I asked myself the question, do I really need it? Am I gonna really use it during my regular flights? Yes, it looks good, but I decided at least to hold off the purchase for a while, not to decide right now. Maybe when it's on sale I will buy it, but for now, I'm happy with GSX as it is. So, always ask yourself that question and make sure you avoid the impulse purchases as much as possible. Now, the fourth tip that I'd like to give you is kind of related to this, and that's to don't feel obliged to buy add-ons. Especially on social media, whenever a new add-on comes out and you're part of some sort of flight sim group or VATSIM, for example, you will see a lot of people, getting the new add-on, showing it off, and you kind of feel obliged to keep up with the community and buy the add-on. But no, really, just like the last tip, ask yourself the question, are you going to really use it, and do you really need it? Are you going to really like it? The general thing is, do not feel obliged to buy add-ons. It's your sim, you have to design it the way you like and the way you like it to fly, and that's basically it. If you're happy with your sim, you can leave it at that. You don't have to keep up with the community per se, right? And the fifth tip that I'd like to give you, also relating to the previous tip, is to try before you buy. Now, of course, not all software add-ons really give a trial version, but you can also check out reviews, watch videos watch other people use the products so you can kind of get an idea what the experience is and what the shortcomings are, and also read reviews on the internet so you can really, get an accurate picture of the add-on that you're wanting to buy. For example, if an add-on appears to have a lot of bugs or just is not complete yet, or people are overall not very satisfied with the product, you can just hold off, wait for a sale, maybe by then things have improved, and in that way you have saved some money, and you also save yourself from buying an add-on that's not very complete yet. So it works two ways really. So the next 5 tips will be more related to hardware. Again, it's all kind of interrelated, but I want to give some specific tips on hardware. Now the 6th tip is still kind of related to both, and that is to buy with the future in mind. And this is especially true for hardware. There's quite a lot of good hardware around for flight simulation, like really nice yokes and throttles, rudder pedals, or panels for your aircraft. But you have to ask yourself the question, for example, next year, do I really have enough time for flight simulation to really make use of this hardware? Or, am I going to use it for a year and then it's probably going to end up on the attic? It does happen. So the overall message here is to really, limit your hardware to the hardware that you're really going to use. And in that way you can save some money and avoid dust building up on hardware that you're not going to use. Now the 7th tip that I'd like to give you is to get second-hand hardware. Guys, this is really, really important and can save you a lot of money. Now believe it or not, almost all my hardware in my flight sim setup is actually second-hand. The only piece that is not second-hand are my rudder pedals. They are actually a new product that I purchased for the full price. But really, flight sim yokes, flight sim rudder sets, they are all available on websites like eBay, or if you're Dutch, like Marktplaats. A lot of people will be reselling their products, whether they've been used for a couple of years, or sometimes people just sell their product because they haven't used it and it's still in the box, but it will save you money. So don't immediately regard secondhand products as hardware that's just unusable or too damaged. Usually the secondhand hardware actually works out pretty well. Just make sure, if you can, to ask for photos, make sure that the hardware looks good, and if possible pick it up yourself so you can really try it out and see if it all works properly. The thing here is that secondhand hardware is just a lot cheaper. Of course the quality might not always be supreme, it will not always feel like a new product, but hey, you can engage in your flight sim hobby by using that hardware, and it will save you a lot of money. So always make sure you check out secondhand hardware store websites in order to see if someone is offering any type of flight sim hardware that you'd like to use. The 8th tip that I like to give you is to build something with almost nothing. Now what I mean by this is that, if you use your own creativity a little bit, you can, expand your flight sim setup yourself just with materials that you have around the house. For example, instead of buying an expensive MCP or EFIS panel or anything that has knobs or switches, you could also use a dirty old keyboard and kind of label it yourself and program it using, for example, FSUI PC and Prepared. And in that way you can kind of create your own little, panel with buttons that you can use to control functions in the airplane. Another example that I'd like to give you, before I was kindly gifted these 737 throttle handles, I actually kind of created my own 737 or Boeing style throttle handles using foam and paint. It doesn't look very pretty, but it actually kind of felt more realistic, and that way you can kind of expand your flight sim setup just using your own creativity. And not only does it save your money, it's also kind of fun, it's part of the flight sim hobby. Now the 9th tip that I like to give you is more related to your PC, and that is to build a custom PC and reuse parts wherever possible. Now I think by far the biggest expense that you're going to have for your flight sim hobby is indeed your PC. You want to have a good PC in order to run the flight simulator smoothly, but that hardware does cost a lot of money. So the best way to illustrate this is probably just by showing my own example. My PC, it looks very compact, and I have to take the side panel off whenever I'm running flight sim in order to prevent it from getting hot. It's kind of a student solution to a bigger problem, but it works. My PC is mostly built up out of second-hand parts. For example, if your old PC died, you may be able to still use older parts like the case, which is, for example, a good cost saver. If you have a good case from your previous PC, you can just empty it and then build in your new parts in that PC yourself. The same for hard drives or SSDs, for example. If they are from an old PC, you can just build them into your new PC, and in that way you have a little bit of extra storage space. But the general thing about this tip is to really build your custom PC. I know there are quite a few PCs out there that give you like a complete package that is able to run Flightsim smoothly and whatever. But in my opinion, custom PCs are usually cheaper because you get to pick your own parts and pick what you really need. And then again, you can use parts that you have still left in order to, reduce the cost even further. So really give it a thought. If you don't have any experience with custom PC building, you can maybe ask a friend or a family member for help. But in general, it will reduce the cost much more compared to having a complete package that is usually a lot more expensive. And finally, the last tip that I'd like to give you, tip number 10, is to take good care of your hardware. In order to reduce the cost of having to replace a certain piece of hardware, you have to take good care of it in order to prevent it from breaking. For example, make sure you clean out your PC, make sure there's no dust accumulation. What you can also do is kind of elevate your PC like I did here. By keeping it from the floor, you kind of reduce the chance of dust building up in the internal parts of the computer. And taking care of hardware also relates to the Flightsim hardware. For example, your yoke or your joysticks. Now, they will wear and tear over time, believe me. But if you just treat them gently and clean them every once in a while, you'll be fine, and you can use that hardware for the years to come. But even if you have hardware that's kind of written off, you might be still able to use it. For example, my second joystick right here, the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro, I don't use it for flying anymore because I think the sensors are just dirty. Now I could open it all up and clean it, and then it might actually work again. But currently I'm just using it as a second joystick, for example during multi-crew flights, so it can have some, set push to talk buttons and set view buttons. And in that way I still use that hardware. I don't really have to buy another joystick, and in that way I have saved some money. So guys, I hope these 10 tips have helped you out. Make sure you give them all a review, and of course this is a great hobby, but I think you all should be aware of the cost of the hobby, especially if you're still young or a student, or if you don't have a full-time job and have plenty of earnings to afford this. Make sure you don't overwhelm yourself with add-ons or hardware. Just build up slowly. That's usually what I do. My cockpit, my Flightsim setup has been building up for years, and right now I have a setup that I'm very proud of and confident with, and I feel has been worth the money over time. Now, if you liked this video and if you appreciated these tips, make sure to check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/aviationpro. If you'd like to support the channel, your help would be very much appreciated. And for now, I wish you good luck with taking care of your software and hardware and your purchases, and hope you have fun time with your Flightsim experience. And lastly, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It would be very much appreciated, and I will see you next time.